Well, Razorback fans, we know that Arkansas and Vanderbilt, it's going down tonight at 9 p.m., mind you. Very important game. So let's go ahead and talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Well, it's a Tuesday and it's an afternoon, so you know what that means. It's got to be a THV 11 Tuesday. And joining us right now, it's been a long time, but Nick Luttrell of THV 11 is joining us. And what's going on, Nick? How you doing?
What's up, John? I'm doing good. It's felt like it's been months. I know it's probably been about a month, but it feels like it's been a while. I don't know. We keep missing each other, and that's okay.
Yeah, well, travel and all that crazy stuff going on with it, with football and spring practice going to be starting up, and then you got basketball and baseball. It's a lot of fun and plenty of things to talk about. And we know, as you know, Arkansas and Vanderbilt tonight. First off, before we get into the game, 9 p.m. tips might be the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life, and especially it being on a Tuesday. And I'm not trying to complain because I know everybody has to go through different things and scheduling and all that. But, man, this just seems like one of the worst type of game times, especially with a team that you're going to be playing in Vanderbilt tonight with Arkansas.
Yeah, there's always, stuff weird about when Arkansas plays at Vanderbilt. You already factor in the weird shot clock and the weird places that they sit on the, opposing teams' benches and everything. And now you factor in the fact that they have to play at 9 o'clock at night. That's just weird, especially going from, they played at noon on Saturday. They'll play at 11 a.m. this past Saturday. So that has to do something a little, you want to have consistency for your team. And that certainly is not consistent in any form of the word. And then if you want to look at it from my perspective, no one really cares probably about my perspective, but from a TV perspective, we want to show the old people who don't know how to get to SEC Network. We want to show them the highlights of this game, and the game won't even be close to over by the time our little sports hit of the news 10 p.m. newscast goes on. So that part of it is also pretty frustrating. I don't know why it's a 9 o'clock tip off. I just don't get it. Only one of the year.
Yeah, they wanted to do a triple header of games at 5 and 7 and 9, and we all know that 2-hour windows is plenty of time for a college basketball game to get in. So I'm sure it won't be delayed or be on a different network at all. But either way, The game's going to have to get played. And there's no excuses for Arkansas. After that absolutely abysmal performance against South Carolina, they got 2 games left of the regular season, the latest in the bracketology, at least for Joe Lunardi. Still has Arkansas as one of those last 4 teams in. For this game tonight specifically, I don't want to say it's a must win because I still think they can find a way to navigate through, especially with Vanderbilt being a much improved and quality team. But what can we expect out of the Razorbacks following up that terrible performance where just a week or two ago, it seemed like Arkansas was playing their best basketball?
Yeah, John, this has been a team that the entire season they haven't lived and died by the 3-pointer, not necessarily. But I think at this point in the season, especially early in this game, I want to see them make a couple 3-pointers. I think that's an important thing to do to get their confidence going, because this is a team that probably doesn't have a lot of confidence right now, and frankly shouldn't after a horrible game, their worst shooting performance of the season, of the past few seasons, for a Razorback team that is pretty good. But to come out and just get destroyed by a pretty mediocre South Carolina team, and I'll say mediocre, I don't think they're a bad South Carolina team, even though they're the last or second to last, whatever they are now in the SEC. I think they're a decent team. It was a quad 2 loss. But for this game now against a relatively good Vanderbilt team who hasn't been good in recent years, but they are for some reason this year, and they're always kind of sneaky good at home, and there's always scary games for Arkansas to play, like I mentioned, on the road in Nashville. Kind of answer your question, I just want to see them make a couple of shots to begin this game. As soon as they make that first 3-pointer, hopefully in the first few minutes of the game, and I do think it needs to be a 3-pointer. I don't think it can be a layup because, they made some layups, I guess. They missed a lot on Saturday, but they made some. 3-pointer, if they just make a 3-pointer, I think that will take the edge off a little bit, and then they'll be back to hopefully the team that we've seen them in all the month of February.
Well, in this game, too, it's a matter of being shorthanded. We know Adu Thero is more than likely not going to play, and they've been without Boogie Flam, but you got basically 7 guys that are on the bench. And even if you're at your best, even if you have enough talent and you're figuring things out, the depth and the legs and the fatigue, that's going to be definitely playing a factor into it. Is there a way that you can manage it? I mean, how does Cal find a way to manage this when it comes to making sure his guys are not only as fresh as can be, but knowing that some of these guys are going to have to play 30 plus minutes that normally
Yeah.
wouldn't have to be asked to do something like that?
I I think the best way Cal can motivate them, because you've already, you can't run those extra sprints or the extra suicides that you did in off season to prepare them and get them physically ready. Like, they're at a point where they're kind of past that. It's all mental now, I would say. Their stamina is their stamina. Like, that's how it's going to be. Cal needs to prepare them mentally to get ready to go in this game, because now they know, okay, we've got 7 players. They knew that the past 2 games. One of those last 2 games, they said, okay, we got 7 players. We're going to play relatively good. The other of those past 2 games, they said, we have 7 players. We're just not going to play very good. So I hope it's going to be a game where they do play good and they do understand, okay, we have 7 players. How about we're motivated by not just the fact that we have 7 players, but the fact that, okay, let's do this for Duthero, who is not playing this game and might be out for the season. Who knows? Let's do this for Boogie Fland because he's still supporting us. So we're going to get this win for him. Let's be motivated by those things and try to get this win.
Well, I don't know how much the motivation will be there as much as it should be already. I don't know how much extra added motivation that they need, but to be able to win this game tonight seems like it would be Arkansas is in the NCAA tournament regardless what happens on Saturday. Do you feel like that if they win this game tonight, they're in, or is it still something that they're going to have some makeup ground for, whether it's against Mississippi State in the season finale or even in the SEC tournament, which will be starting up next week?
I do have a question before you go on. Sorry to put you on the spot, but would this be a quad 1 win at Vanderbilt?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's what I thought. I still think no, even though that's a quad 1 win on the road. I think you could still turn around and I've seen crazier things happen. I think you could still turn around and lay an egg at home, lose by 20, and then have a really bad performance in the SEC tournament. And then you're probably close to off the bubble or definitely on the bubble if that happens. Certainly if they beat Vanderbilt and they beat Mississippi State, I think they're definitely in. It'd be nice if they win one SEC tournament game, then they're for sure in. But the thing I was saying on my show today is I think 2 or 3 games you got to win the rest of the season, whether that's, you got 2 regular season games left and you got an SEC tournament game, at least one coming up here in the next week or so. So, a win tonight, it would certainly mean a lot. I don't know if it would for sure put them in there, but ESPN always talks about what percentage is Arkansas going to make it after they win or lose this game. That would certainly put it above 50%. I'd put it at the 70% mark if they win tonight of the odds of them making the tournament. What do you think?
No, I think that's fair. I mean, it seems like you just need that one, and anything else on top of that is just bonus. But being able to win against a bona fide NCAA tournament team like Vanderbilt on the road, especially considering how they're playing right now,
yeah,
I feel like that's good enough. You don't want to risk it. If you can keep winning, that'd be great. But it certainly seems like you're in the right position there, and it seems like it all works out for you.
And isn't it so weird how it is with the SEC this year? I mean, just look at Arkansas's conference record. They have six wins in conference. Yeah, I think it's 6 or 7. So isn't that crazy? Because the SEC has not been like that in recent years. I know people can talk about, how good the SEC is this year, but it still feels weird that Arkansas could get into the big dance with only 7 conference wins.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but that's just how it's gone and how good the conference is. It's really frustrating, though, I know, for Razorback fans of being at 6-10 at this point, knowing that you are above teams like South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, and Texas. 3 of those teams you lost to this year with Oklahoma, LSU, and South Carolina, and that's brutal. So it's just a matter of timing and everything, but Arkansas's got a big one against Vanderbilt tonight. We're going to talk a little bit, though, about the SEC tournament, which I know is not till next week, but the approach that needs to be had if you're the Arkansas Razorbacks. We'll get to that and more, so stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I'm here to tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. March basketball, of course, is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps the game very exciting. You can make the picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged in all the games all game long. And when you win, the money hits the account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around. PrizePicks even offers weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you can get discounted player projections for even more value. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's PrizePicks. Run your game. Continuing our discussion here on a THV 11 Tuesday with Nick Luttrell of THV 11. Now, Nick, I know the SEC tournament's not till next week. We'll see what the standings and everything are at, but I think this is a pretty fascinating question of if you're Arkansas. We talked about, hey, if they win tonight, they're in the NCAA tournament. I think we both can agree that if they win tonight and against Mississippi State on Saturday, they're for sure in the NCAA tournament. At least that's the way the rankings are set up. So say if they did that, say if they won both games, what's the approach to the NCAA or to the SEC tournament then? Because obviously you have games in front of you and you want to perform well, but we also know Arkansas is dealing with injuries and lack of depth and fatigue and everything. What would be the correct way to approach it to where you maybe scale things back a little bit, get guys rested up, play some players that you normally don't play to try to get out of there quickly? Or do you just keep playing games in front of you and keep playing like your life depends on it?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I don't want to see, let's say let's go with the scenario. Say Arkansas wins the next 2 games. They're in the SEC tournament. And well, they'll be in the SEC tournament either way. But in that first game of the SEC tournament, you obviously don't. I still want to see them win. I think the biggest thing is confidence. Even if the game doesn't matter, like they're going to make the NCAA tournament either way, I still want to see some confidence out of this team playing in that game. I don't want to see them lose by 20 or by 25 to some other double-digit seeded SEC team. I want to see a confident team playing, and if you lose a close game, and the reason you lose is because, that team was a little bit more motivated to make it into the tournament, while Arkansas already has themselves fully submissive into the NCAA tournament. And also, even if they win both of these games, I think they're still kind of on the bubble, or they're at least around they could be a first 4 team. And I think Cal, you asked me earlier about how he can motivate them. He can certainly motivate them with that. Like, do you guys want to go and play in Dayton, Ohio on a Tuesday or Wednesday, or would you rather stay back and rest and hang out for another day or two before you go off to wherever your round of 64 game is? So I think you can use that as motivation. You don't want to be one of those teams that is in the first 4 as kind of fun as it would be for me to get to go there, because I've always wanted to kind of go to Dayton, Ohio, and those are really fun, exciting games because you're trying to make your way into the NCAA tournament. As a team, you don't want to be playing there. I mean, you do if you're on the bubble. You'd rather be in than out, but you want to be fully in and not have to kind of do one of those play-in games. So, kind of summarizing here, the approach, I think, needs to be a team that I want to see continue to be motivated, play confident. I wouldn't just play all your bench players. I'd still play the same amount of guys, but also just be a little careful. If you get another guy injured, I mean, 6 players, you can't do nothing with 6 players.
No, you can't. And that's the thing with the approach there. You don't know one way or the other. You can sit there and look at Joe Lenardi or whoever, but they don't have the know-all, end-all, be-all answers on who's getting in and who's not. And this is at least one of the first times I can remember of Arkansas potentially being in that position where they have to watch Selection Sunday because they have no idea if they're even going to be in. It's not about what seed they're in. And so the potential of being an 11 seed is right there. But as you said, hey, if you get in, you get in, and that's really all that matters at this point. But I think with a situation like Arkansas too, and with Cal, you're kind of hoping that the Hall of Fame coach uses his Hall of Fame instincts and kind of goes along with, okay, what does my team need right now? And how do they need to be getting more reps? Do they need to have better competition? Because you just went through an 18-game schedule of SEC play, which, as we all know, is extremely difficult for every team. I'm wondering if not only just Arkansas, but if there's other teams in the SEC tournament that may approach it to where it's like, hey, we've done all this. We're banged up. We're beat up. We need some time off. So let's scale it back a little bit and not care as much. There may be a few other teams that do that same thing.
Yeah. I do wonder if sometime in the future, if the SEC in basketball is going to be this good, if it's going to, and it's kind of already turning into this maybe a little bit. I'm curious to hear your take on this, but if it's going to turn into kind of how the SEC baseball tournament is, where it kind of doesn't matter. Like the team that wins is already going to be in the NCAA tournament, and sure they get an automatic bid and they might improve their seed a little bit, but doesn't really matter. Now, I don't think I'm not saying that's the case right now with the SEC basketball tournament. I'm just saying going forward, if the SEC continues to be this good in basketball, then you might have a couple teams that are motivated and ready to go, but it might not really matter.
No, it may not. And it may get there to that point where it's just like, oh, everyone just doesn't want to go. It's like a very bad feeling, and then no one cares as much. It's set up for that, but I feel like that's just conference tournaments in general in a lot of different sports. And for SEC basketball, it's mattered because usually there were so many teams that weren't in, and the only way they could be is if they proved themselves in the tournament. But now there's a potential of 11, 12, 13 teams in the NCAA tournament from the SEC. So it's almost like no point in it at this point if you know you're going to get in. But should be fascinating, though. I just still got a few games to play in the regular season, so we'll see how it all plays out. But Nick, before we let you get out of here, man, just tell us what you got going on over at THV 11 this week, heading into the final week of not only Arkansas Razorback basketball, but just college basketball, high school basketball, all that stuff going on right now.
Yeah, lots of basketball. It is kind of ending that crossover season with basketball and baseball starting up, of course, very soon, and has already started up for college teams. And yeah, so high school basketball state tournaments are this weekend, so we'll be doing good amount of coverage for that, and then state championships are next weekend. And as you mentioned, a lot of other college programs that we're following are doing relatively well. The UCA women are really good, so we'll see if they can, pull off some upsets in the tournament, make it to March Madness. The A-State men, they're the four seed in their conference tournament. So I know a lot of people that are Razorback fans, also Red Wolves fans, or just Red Wolves fans that don't like the Razorbacks wants A-State to win their conference, the Sun Belt, and make it to March Madness instead of the Razorbacks. Maybe that would be crazy, but A-State's a good team, so it's kind of been fun to. I've talked about that a few times with you. It's been fun to cover them as well, because at times they have looked better than the Razorbacks. Not always, but at times.
Yep. Hey, listen, it's a basketball state through and through. I've said it many times. They got a lot of talent, not only in the high school level, but in the college level too. So should be fun here over the next few weeks. But Nick, as always, we appreciate it. Enjoy your rest of your week, man. We'll be catching up with you next week.
All right, John. Thanks so much.